Here we go.
Happy almost Memorial Day.
Yes, looking forward to it. Any fun plans for the long weekend, Megan?
I think the pool is opening, so gonna take the kids. Maybe hit up the deals.
Nice. Are you shopping for anything fun?
No, but I know that there's sales to be had, so I might take a look. Might take a look online to see.
Yeah, totally get that.
Any new furniture, things like that, like the big stuff. Things
Yeah,
like off. Want to
I
see
feel
what.
like I'm getting a ton of emails for like good furniture
Oh yeah,
deals and like a lot of couches for sale and stuff. I feel like it's a good time to scoop up those deals.
oh yeah. We've been busy. Most of our clients have a sale going on right now for Memorial Day that some of them have already started. Some of them are starting up Friday, go into Monday. But you know how it is. I think sort of the culture shifted years ago where, it used to be like Black Friday when we had in person shopping. You would go on Thanksgiving evening and wait and get in. Now that everyone's shopping online, there's no like, you can start your sale whenever. And I feel like it gets earlier and earlier every year.
Totally, especially when you have these big sales events like in a row. Like I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been seeing like the bleed over from the Mother's Day promos into Memorial Day and teeing into Father's Day, at least here in the States. So it's like a jam-packed couple of weeks we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to interrupt you too. I just want to welcome everyone who's joined. We're just going to give people a few more minutes to join. So we'll get started in a moment. I'm Kimberly Anderson Much, the Director of Content here at Agital, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Outsmart the Inbox, why 80% of e-commerce emails fail and how to fix it. We're joined by two experts that live and breathe email performance, Megan Langston from Go Fish Digital, which is an Agital company, and Lauren Del Vecchio from Yotpo. They'll walk us through the most common email pitfalls and how to fix them with smarter segmentation, better design, and automation. We'll also have polls and Q&A during our webinar, so we encourage you to participate. Participation makes our webinars. Now I'd love if you let us know where you're zooming in from, what you're interested in learning, so we can make sure to address and tailor the webinar to answer some of those questions, and what your company is. Did you both get anything for Memorial Day or Mother's Day sales?
I'm in like the one of those years where I have a lot of weddings to go to. So for Memorial Day, I'm planning on shopping the registries and getting the best
Oh,
possible
that's good.
sales. Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you all?
I haven't bought anything now.
Me either.
Okay.
I'm trying to go on like a only buy necessary things. We recently moved and having to pack and unpack everything, I realized how much stuff we have and how little I need. So I'm trying to go on a cleanse, really.
I give you a lot of credit for that. That takes great willpower.
It
Yeah.
really does. It really does. And being on social media makes it so much harder because they're like, oh, look at this dress that you would love, but we totally tailored to everything you look at.
Right.
Hi, Kathleen, Butcher Block Co. Yes, email is a great asset. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to move on. I want to get into more details about our speakers. So Megan Langston is the Director of Email Marketing at Go Fish, where she leads a high-performing team managing email programs for nearly 40 brands. Her team drives millions in monthly revenue through data-backed strategies that increase engagement, retention, and growth. She's worked with brands like Clean Beauty Collective, Wheel Pros, Sky Geek, and Swiss Knife Shop. Lauren Del Vecchio is the email and SMS deliverability operations lead at Yotpo with over 10 years of experience improving email performance. She helps brands boost inbox placement, protect sender reputation, very important, and solve complex deliverability issues, drawing on past roles at HubSpot and Klaviyo. Before we get started, I want to jump into a poll. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll talk about what you'll learn in this session. So before you leave, you should understand navigating ISP changes that impact your deliverability, segmenting smarter to boost clicks and conversions, improving mobile design for better engagement, avoiding common mistakes that kill email ROI, and how to use automation and AI to drive hands-free sales. Before we get started, though, I want to jump into a poll. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to jump into this poll before it's even time to jump into the poll. All right, Lauren, I'll let you take it. And then after Lauren speaks, we will actually jump into that poll. Go ahead, Lauren.
We're just so excited for the poll and to hear everyone's thoughts, both in the chat and then the poll results. So please stay tuned for the poll. All right, let's go ahead and start with the big picture. Email is more crowded than ever. Every brand is in the inbox. Every consumer is feeling overwhelmed. And honestly, most of them are kind of tuning out these emails. Think about your own inbox for a second. I know I'm not the only one on this webinar today who probably has hundreds, maybe thousands of unread emails sitting there. Some from brands you really love, some from brands you maybe don't even remember subscribing to. The reality is this is the landscape that we are operating in. And if you're here today, it's probably because you're feeling the pressure too. How do we get noticed? We know email is our biggest asset, like someone said in the chat, but how do we break through the noise without burning out our audiences and burning through our reputation, of course? Getting noticed used to be simply about timing or clever subject line. And now it's feeling like it's really about survival in an ever crowded inbox. The reality is the inbox is a tough, volatile place right now, and the rules have been changing. For years, we relied on things like open rates to tell us if our emails were working. But with the changes we've seen in the email ecosystem in the past few years, like Apple Mail privacy protection that rolled out a couple of years ago, and increasing inbox service provider anti-abuse protections, open rates aren't really telling the full story that they used to. As we know, some of those opens aren't real, or even when they are, what is the open actually telling us? Maybe someone glanced at the email, or the tracking open pixel loaded. That's not true success. While we absolutely can and should still use opens to understand directional trends, the real the real impact and success comes from the other metrics that historically, I would say, us in the email world haven't paid as much attention to. So as marketers and brand operators, we really can't afford to confuse this like activity with impact. I would say it's time to shift our focus towards the signals that actually move the needle when we think about the email landscape and deliverability. Before we dive into kind of like what success looks like, we need to dive into how the rules have changed, because once you understand the shifts that we've seen in the ISP world, you'll leave today really feeling fresh with ideas and a clear path forward. Deliverability isn't just a technical detail anymore. It's the foundation of everything we do in email marketing. And over the past year and a half, the foundation has dramatically shifted. Inbox providers have raised the bar, and the rules of the game have really evolved. If you're not keeping up with those changes, even the best crafted emails can quietly miss the mark. So what's changed? Let's go ahead to the next slide and we can talk a little bit more about the deliverability shift we've seen. Over the past year and a half, the inbox providers have collectively raised the bar. We're seeing tighter spam filters, new authentication requirements, less tolerance for subpar sending habits. Gmail, Yahoo, and most recently this month, Microsoft have all forced email marketers to really get their practices into tip-top shape. And rightfully so. The email landscape is flooded as ever with low-quality mail. And in order to level up the playing field and keep inboxes valuable to consumers, legitimate email marketers, all of us here on this webinar today, need to care about their deliverability. As part of this shift we started seeing last year, the ISPs have been requiring things like domain authentication, DMARC, one-click unsubscribe, staying below certain spam rate thresholds, and other kind of like technical standards to be followed. So really, when I think about it, it's these long-standing best practices that we've cared a lot about in the deliverability world have transitioned into being hard and fast requirements. And here's the thing, these consequences, the consequences for failing to adapt to these changes aren't subtle. We're seeing, brands who haven't evolved their strategy really falling behind in this kind of new deliverability world that we're operating in. If you're mailing low quality lists, getting lots of spam complaints, or not properly authenticating your mail streams, your emails might not make it to the inbox at all. And what does that mean? Your subject line doesn't matter. The beautiful email designs you put a ton of work into won't be seen. Your email offer, your promo code dead on arrival. So really, when I say it's like deliverability isn't just a back-end concern for us deliverability people anymore. It's a frontline performance issue that all marketers need to care about. And if we want to see real results, we need to start getting serious about deliverability. Of course, making sure all of our technical requirements are checked off. Like I said, DMARC, authentication, some of those more technical nuances that your ESP, email service provider, would be setting up for you. But honestly, those technical things are just the start. It's, I would say, like your foundation checklist to get started. But the real magic happens when you start sending the right content to the right people and not just sending to the most subscribers and kind of hoping for the best. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but let's go ahead and transition into opens and some of the metrics we need to start caring about.
Actually, I'm going to take it with the poll I was really
okay, awesome.
But I just want to welcome Carolyn, Lisa. Subscriber email fatigue is something that she's really interested in addressing. Email with financial services and personal care brands, Joe. So I just wanted to call out those few people. So now we're going to jump into a poll. What's your biggest email challenge right now? We're going to launch the poll in just a second. Is it low open rates? Email is going to spam, click-throughs are low, no time to optimize, or unsure about what's working or not working really. Lauren and Megan, what is a top thing that you see with incoming clients or prospects that is a pretty big email struggle or challenge that you come across?
I think creating content, like having enough good quality content to nurture your subscriber lists on a regular basis, and then having the time to continue to develop that and analyze the data and see what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I would say no time to optimize, like really struggling to figure out what variables to change in an email and how to test that and how to draw like the proper conclusions from that. I think all of us are wearing a million different hats, and finding the extra time in the day to optimize is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you both think optimization is so important?
I guess from my perspective, like we talk a lot about best practices and standard things to do, but your subscribers are your email community. They're going to tell you exactly what they want, what they care about, what makes them tick. So that's what the like real best practice is how do your subscribers, your community of email subscribers feel about your practices and what you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as digital marketers, we need to be putting the data at the forefront of everything that we do. And a lot of times we think this is something that I would like. This looks good to me, and I'm a consumer. But I think that you're really missing out on an opportunity to have that two-way communication that Lauren just talked about.
Yeah, that's something I hear so often, people or marketers interjecting their personal preferences, which is not a data-backed strategy, and it's not really what's going to land in their market. That's a great point. All right, so poll results, biggest email challenge. It looks like click-through rates are low is a really high one, followed by no time to optimize, as you mentioned, Megan. Low open rates is tied in second place. Unsure what's working or not working, and email's going to spam finally. So we will definitely address those issues, and I will let you take it from here.
Awesome. So it sounds like open rates are a bit of a challenge, which is no surprise. We can go ahead and click through to the next slide. Open rates have really long been kind of like our gold star metric in the world of email deliverability and email marketing more broadly. And to be fair, they have been useful. I still use them every single day. They're easy to track, easy to explain, and they've helped marketers and brand operators understand kind of general trends over time, understand inbox placement, things like that. But in today's landscape, they're just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Privacy updates like Apple Mail Privacy Protection and similar features in the ISP landscape have made opens much harder to interpret. Some are inflated, some are associated with non-human interactions. Sometimes these are called bots. And even when they are accurate, they don't necessarily tell us why someone opened or what they did or what the impact on our business was. For example, a 75% open rate like we see on this chart here might look amazing and incredible until you realize no one clicked. So going back to the poll, really low click rates, maybe no one converted, no revenue came in, and that suddenly that extremely high open rate doesn't feel so meaningful. Open rates really can and still should be used for directional shifts, but they shouldn't be the finish line or the singular metric of success. We'd love to talk a little bit more about like the metrics that move the business. Kim, if you wouldn't mind toggling to the next slide. Like I said, opens are just at the beginning. To understand what's actually working, we need to look a little bit deeper, look beyond the surface at the metrics that actually correlate with action and outcome and business growth. Clicks are part of that story. They show curiosity and intent. They show someone was interested enough to do something, to take an action on that email. But it really doesn't stop there. Other metrics I'd love for us as a broader email community and you all in the webinar today to start thinking more about is revenue and conversions and lifetime value and associating that back into email. Those are really the numbers that move the business forward and the signals of success, the signs, if you will, that your email program is bringing home the bacon. So it's really time to evolve what we measure. It's not just, hey, my email was good because it has a high open rate. It's, did it perform? Did it convert? Did it make an impact? That shift starts with how we create emails, really building content with real purpose, not just generic kind of batch and blast offers, having calls to action that are clear, bold, relevant, like we see on these emails here, and compelling to the subscriber. It makes them want to take an action. And really, these campaigns are designed to drive action, not just attention, not just eyes on it. Because ultimately, this isn't just about landing in the inbox. We want you to do more with email. It's about landing the results and winning those long-term customer relationships and building up that email community that we've been talking about. Megan, anything to chime in here with, or any kind of call outs you'd make about like email design before we jump into the nitty gritty?
Yeah, I was going to say, as you were talking, I was thinking about being weary too of hiding behind the open rate. So you could be working with an agency and they might just be always presenting those leading metrics and never giving you the results that you actually need. And so you have a false sense of success. And that can go on for months until you realize I'm not getting a lot of revenue out of my email program right now. And I think we're going to talk about it later in our time together, but always, maybe doing an audit of that account to see what other opportunities are in there, because you might have a really strong open rate and it's really easy to hide behind that and then have a false sense of security. And we don't want that.
Yeah, such a great call out. And like you said, it could be masking so many other things. And really, it takes a lot of digging beneath the surface to unpack what's actually happening. Why don't we go ahead and figure out why so many email programs miss the mark and what to do about it? Megan, I'll hand it over to you. Oh, we have another poll.
Yeah, I'm going to take it over again with another poll.
Awesome.
So before we hand it over to Megan, I'd love for everyone to let us know what metrics you use to measure email success. The poll just launched. Is it open rate, click-through rate, conversion rate, or revenue, list growth, or are you unsure? Megan and Lauren, I'd love your input on this question. What do you think?
Yeah, my Interesting. I'll break it on like the kind of high level. I'm always looking at things like open rate and click rate to assess overall network performance, or, because I look at deliverability on such a macro level. But when I think about like the granular brand specific things, I care most about click-through rate and conversion rate. Again,
Yeah.
really tying it back to that action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to lead with the revenue, like understanding how is this impacting the bottom line, and then we use those other metrics to strategize on what we need to do differently, or to give us new insights that we hadn't considered yet, like Lauren mentioned with the deliverability.
I'll share the results quickly. So it looks like click-through rate, conversion rate, revenue, and some people aren't sure. Interesting, open rate wasn't something that people feel is attributed to email success or list growth. What do you two think?
I think with exactly what we just been talking about, that open rate's important to look at, but it can't be what you use to measure success ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fully agreed there. And I'm really excited, honestly, to see some interesting like trends there with like click and conversion rate. I think it's super cool that people are dialed into those.
All right, I'll hand it over back to the two of you.
Okay. So Lauren kind of teed us off today about, getting into the inbox, getting over that first hurdle of deliverability. But once you've cleared that, and the work, obviously isn't done. So if your emails aren't performing, obviously if they're not opened, clicked, or engaged with, your deliverability will eventually take a hit. You'll find yourself back into that spam folder. So we want to talk about making the most of your emails when you are able to deliver them successfully to your subscribers. So I'm going to talk about some of the biggest issues that we see first. Some of these are strategy issues, some of them are poor execution or a mix of both. And I just want to say most of the time, it's not just one thing that you could work on. It's usually a combination of many areas that need improvement. And it's a constant sort of improving and evolving of what you're able to do, both with strategy and implementation. So the first one, number one, is lack of segmentation and personalization. So in other words, sending that same message to everyone in your list. In today's digital landscape, customers really expect content to be tailored to their interests. I think we talked about that when we first opened up. Kimberly was saying that she's getting ads for things that they know exactly that she's someone who would want to purchase that. And that's intentional, right? If you're not using behavior preferences or purchase history to inform email messages, it sends a signal that you're not really paying attention, right? So when a subscriber feels unseen, they lose trust in your brand, and they're thinking, if they don't really know me, how can they possibly make a purchasing recommendation for me, right? So kind of thinking about this like a trained sales associate wouldn't walk into up to a group of teenage girls in a department store and start recommending the men's suits area. We don't want our emails to come across that off, right? The way that that example gave you. So this type of one size fits all messaging, if it continues over and over again, your subscribers are going to catch on. They're going to think that your content's irrelevant, and they're going to eventually unsubscribe. The next thing that we see is overly promotional messaging strategy. Kim, will you take it to the next slide here? This is probably one of the most common mistakes I see. Brands don't want to send out emails that nurture their audience because they have low conversion, and they're really not understanding the value of those type of emails. So instead, they want to tack a promo or a discount onto every email so they can get as many sales as possible. And when every email really is focused on discounts and sales, what you end up doing is training your customers to wait for the next deal. It completely strips the excitement from your promotion, and it takes the urgency out of your offers. And we know as marketers that urgency can be a major driver for purchasing decisions. So a lot of times you'll see if you can hold off for a little bit and then launch a sale or promotion, your conversion rate will be just as high, if not higher, and you can make up for the loss in sales by not scheduling out all of those many promotions. This approach also can alienate subscribers who aren't in a buying mindset. So you might have some people who are more money conscious right now. They're not interested in making a purchase, we don't want them to unsubscribe. So how can we engage them in another way and have emails that provide value like tips, inspiration, storytelling, anything that would keep them engaged with your brand so when they are ready to buy, you come top of mind.
Yeah, Megan, I feel like this storytelling is somewhere a lot of brands can really lean into. Like I'm thinking about Lisa in the chat had mentioned like combating email fatigue. Storytelling is such a good way to balance that out. So subscribers aren't feeling fatigued by a constant barrage of promos, but have a bit of content to balance it out and also help them build up more of that connection with the brand that they do want to buy in the future when they are in a buying position.
Yeah, that's great.
I love this content, Megan. As a content marketer, this is my bread and butter. This is the value prop that I bring, and this is something that I throughout my career have constantly had to explain, right? That building a connection and brand loyalty is so important to that conversion later on.
Yeah.
So,
The next one, well, we talked about, let's see, we talked about what you send, that matters, but also when and how often you send is just as important. I think that kind of goes to what we were just talking about. I think Lisa was the one that said she's worried about the fatigue. So I do think taking a look at your frequency of sending can be really, really valuable to your overall strategy. Many clients will assume, or brands will assume that sending more emails is automatically better. That's going to lead to more revenue, more emails, more revenue. But more isn't always better, right? Too many messages can overwhelm your audience. It can come across as spammy. They might unsubscribe. On the flip side, sending too few can also be damaging. And I'm not sure that everyone really sees that. They're saying, well, we're not going to the spam folder. We don't want to bug our audience. We can just wait until we do have something to say. Then we'll send an email. Doing that, you also risk losing visibility and relevance. So it's like you had a great first date, but then you don't hear from that person in a while. That connection's going to fade. And you have a connection with your audience. You want to nurture that with consistent, thoughtful communication. Otherwise, you're going to lose their interest and you're going to lose their business. So I do think I mentioned earlier what I think one of the biggest hurdles can be is coming up with that content, like deciding what is relevant and engaging and doing it consistently. But if you can lock into that and find the right cadence, then you can really keep your brand top of mind without exhausting your audience, and you can see more success with that. The next thing is bad mobile experience. So we touched on what we were sending, when we were sending. Now we can talk about where we're sending. And you might expect most emails are opened on mobile devices now, but a lot of marketers are still designing with desktop in mind. That's just sort of how we were trained. That's what we think of first is it's an email, it's on a computer. Let me go ahead and do desktop. And then afterwards, I'll switch over to mobile. That disconnect leads to a number of issues, text overlays on images. They look great on desktop. And then when it gets shrunk, you can barely read it. You can't click the button. It's too small. The call to action, you have to scroll way down for. There's a lot of things that you have to consider with mobile design that really should be happening at the same time that you're developing your desktop. Subscribers are getting dozens of emails like we are talking about, and so you really have a really short couple seconds maybe to engage them. And so we'll talk about a little bit later what we can do on mobile to be successful there. Lastly, the biggest miss we see with e-commerce clients is neglecting automation. So when we think of email, sometimes we do think of sending out a promotion or a newsletter to our email list. But automations is really where we can offer more valuable like content in nurturing and engaging customers, reaching them at the right time to drive more significant portion of revenue from email. So a lot of brands either don't know how to set them up properly or they forget to optimize them over time. And that's why we see their overall email program failing.
Yeah, Megan, I'd add, I see the struggle with this is the optimization. Like so often automations are set it and forget it. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have any type of like, I don't know, recommended cadence or something for when to optimize the automations and like how brands can make that a priority.
Yeah. I try to look at the flows that I set up at least every 90 days as far as like optimizing them, looking at the A/B tests, running, changing the design or adding to them. But I think it also depends on the industry that we're working in. So we'll have some clothing brands, for instance, where maybe the creative needs to be swapped out to be more seasonally appropriate. We can also change language to mention some of those huge, big upcoming sales or promotions that we rely heavily on, like Black Friday. And so we might want to change some of the automations to reflect what's going on in the business as well.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Let's move on to talking a little bit about what we can do to improve our email. So the first one is starting with using behavior and purchase data to guide your segmentation and personalization. So I will say some of this is going to overlap because I started thinking about what we can do to directly address some of those most common issues. So when deciding who to send to, you want to start by grouping subscribers based on their actions. So like past purchases, browsing behavior, engagement level. This will help you tailor your messages, but it also informs the how often and when to send to, because then we know that person is engaged. This is the right time to go. With proper segmentation, then you're addressing kind of both the lack of personalization. So I've looked at my list. I know what they're sort of interested in. So this is a good time to target them. And then also I know when is a good time to target them because I can see the behavior that they've had maybe on my site. Working with your email service provider in this or leveraging AI tools is really important. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I know it can be intimidating sometimes for marketers when they're thinking about how to segment their list strategically. But if they can nail it, then it can be hugely beneficial. I'll also say when it comes to personalization, dynamic content blocks can also allow you to personalize the message for different segments within a single campaign. So we're not just talking about who's going to receive the message, but when they receive it, what sort of products are you recommending based on their browsing history? Can maybe you upsell related to an item they recently purchased? Again, I sort of feel like we're talking about here that email is a conversation tool. It's not a broadcast tool. So we can really use email platforms the way it was originally designed to be a two-way communication piece. It's not an ad that we just want to slap up there and see how people respond. We want to be responding to their behavior. They're telling us something with what they're doing, and so then we're going to respond appropriately. Next is creating mobile first design. So we talked about that. Why not leading with mobile can be a problem. It shouldn't be an afterthought. It really deserves to have priority with desktop. Ideally, you want to design for both environments simultaneously to ensure the cohesive look, but you want to optimize each version individually to deliver the best possible user experience for every viewer. So most ESPs will allow you to show or hide content based on the screen size. You want to use that tool to your advantage. On mobile, you want headlines to be short and bold so I can quickly understand what is this email is about. You want it to be easy to read and position your call to action above the scroll. So I don't have to scroll down to click and be landing on your site. I can understand what you're trying to get me to do as soon as I open the email. And you always, of course, want to test it across those different devices before sending. Lauren, anything to add there?
Yeah, thinking back to the poll when someone or the responder said they were struggling with click rates. In the data that I see on the network level, I often see a strong correlation between like low clicks and poor mobile design. So that's definitely one area I would say like coming out of this to start leaning into a bit more is really designing for mobile first and making sure that your clickable elements, your call to action, and of course your segmentation is really airtight when we think about the mobile subscriber experience. Yeah.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about automation. So those are those life cycle automations. They're essential for capturing customers at those critical moments. So we're thinking when they first subscribe, abandoning their cart, completing a purchase. Maybe you need to re-engage after a lull and you want to bring them back. This is another opportunity to use dynamic content like their first name, recommend products, maybe timely purchase reminders. You want them to feel personal and relevant, and we have the tools to do that with most ESPs. You can collect that data, you can leverage AI to help you there and build these automations so they're going to be successful in making the conversion. Again, we talked about don't set and forget. So you really want to make a habit of reviewing and optimizing these flows regularly. I think even small tweaks like a refreshed subject line or a stronger call to action can really dramatically improve the performance over time. And I'm going to get into that here just in a minute when we talk about A/B testing. But it's surprising how many brands that we work with that will find out they've put a lot of investment into developing campaigns, campaign templates, and running those and looking at the results, and they're completely neglecting automation where they could be driving up to 70% or so I've seen of attributed revenue from their automation in the email. Do you have anything to share there, Lauren, as far as what you're seeing?
I just want to like underscore what you said about those small tweaks. I think sometimes this can feel overwhelming to test or to change because it's like we have to redesign the whole email or rebuild out our segmentation. Optimizing doesn't have to be this huge, scary overhaul. It can truly be something as simple as trying out different subject lines or different placement. It's those little things when they're done thoughtfully can really add up on the metrics that we're measuring.
So speaking of that, A/B testing, that's if you go to the next slide, Kim, one of the best ways to keep your program evolving is through that regular A/B testing. So you want to think of ongoing optimization, not one and done step. Subscriber behavior changes, right? And so your emails should also be changing. Again, we're talking about this relationship that we have with our audience. This is sort of the couples counseling of you and your audience, right? So now we're going to go see, how do you respond when I say this? We were going to work together until we have a good relationship, and I can see you respond really well when I communicate this way to you. And I believe we talked about it at the start of the webinar, is not injecting personal preference, but allowing the data to tell the story. Keeping in mind, just because a strategy works or doesn't work for one brand doesn't mean it will produce the same results for yours. So that's really where like an agency could fail or fall short if they're just copying and pasting a strategy they saw working for one of their clients onto your brand. So I'd be weary about that as well. We always want to lead with the data. We want customized, data-driven strategy for every brand. And we don't want to trust anyone who thinks that they know everything. You have a very unique audience, so we need to test and we need to look at that data and then apply it in the ways that are going to meet the business's goals in the end. So everything really can be uniquely tested, and then we can build it out with that customization in mind. So this all kind of comes full circle to deliver the best emails to your audience.
Megan, we have a question on the last slide. I'm just going to pull it back. Out of those two mobile designs, which do you think worked the best? I think that's probably dependent on the audience. Do you want to give any input on that?
Oh, that's a unique question there. I think for that particular example there, we can see that it's pulling in the data. That's a dynamic product block. So it's pulling in whatever the person was searching. So it's going to highlight the items that they looked at. So I think in version 1, we're seeing that's something they're revisiting item that they already either added to their cart or they were browsing. In the second version there, we're hand picking items based off of other behavior that they use. So I think here we're looking at kind of two different things. I don't believe this is an A/B test, but rather using the information that we have strategically to retarget.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Okay, moving on to deliverability.
Yeah, so deliverability issues are very hard to come back from. It's important to be vigilant and constantly monitoring your deliverability performance and your deliverability outcomes. It's a lot easier to spot issues early or trends early rather than trying to come back when you're already deep into a deliverability hole. So coming out of this, I would really strongly recommend tracking key metrics, click rates, spam complaint rates, bounce rates, those types of metrics. For example, what you see on our deliverability analytics dashboard here in Yotpo. In addition, you can also sign up for free tools like Google Postmaster tools, completely free for you to sign up with your domain and dig into your, your compliance with Gmail and also, just general trend lines you're seeing with your Gmail subscribers. The other point I'd make is maintaining regular list hygiene. So this means minding what comes in, new signups, making sure subscribers are incentivized to give you good, real email addresses, and making sure that you're properly collecting consent on sign up. But then also managing things going out, like long-term unengaged subscribers, things like sunset policies or sunset flows, setting those up to constantly stay on top of your list hygiene in a really light lift way. And the final point about deliverability here is knowing how to repair your deliverability once it's been damaged is hugely important too. Of course, your ESP or your agency is going to be a wonderful resource for you in case you are running into deliverability issues. At a high level, if you're seeing negative attrition issues like high bounce rates or spam complaint rates, it's a good sign to start auditing your sources, how you're collecting subscribers, how they come in, trying to pull out trends there and see where the root cause of the issue may be. And if you're seeing engagement issues like low click rates or low open rates, running campaigns to smaller, segmented, engaged audiences, like that segmentation that Megan was telling us about, would be hugely helpful for increasing your engagement over time, but then also your reputation with the ISPs and get you back into a better standing. Let's go ahead and chat about AI next. The other area you can start to think about optimizing is really leveraging the power of AI to work smarter, not harder. I think it's something we're all probably talking about thinking about how to work into our day-to-day workflows. AI is really a cool tool that you can use to get a real edge over competition and level up your email program. A few kind of common areas I see email going with this is using AI-driven tools for optimized segmentation. For instance, on Yotpo email, we have tailored segmentation, which knows your customer's behavior and can create like the most precise list and impactful segments to target in seconds. There's also awesome tools out there like Orita AI, who specialize in AI customer segmentation and can do some really sophisticated things to help you figure out how to deliver the right message to the right people. Some other areas where I see AI being really powerful with optimizing your email program is generating product recommendations, what we were just talking about, based on subscriber preferences or subscriber behavior, and optimizing send times too. So really reaching users when they're most likely to engage, getting away from that kind of batch and blast strategy, sending to everyone at the same time, and really giving consumers or subscribers the message that they want to receive and when they want to receive it to drive that engagement. I know we've covered a ton of topics from like best practices, advanced tactics like AI segmentation. I think we've got a poll coming up next. Is that right, Kimberly?
We do.
Awesome.
So essentially what you two have described is nearly a full-time job in managing email marketing. So we're about to launch a poll. If you're interested in a personalized email audit, you can click yes in the poll to request a free email audit. And we can look at deliverability, segmentation, automations, or help you spot revenue opportunities you might be missing. And if you're not ready to decide right now, you can always click yes, and we'll send you more information that you can explore. In the meantime, Megan, can you give us some insight into what an audit like this might look like and what results you've been able to share with prospects or new clients? What are some things that you see, and what's the value?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, people who are interested in an audit like this will share access to their ESP. We'll go in and take a look and see, as Lauren said, is the DMARC set up correctly? Is the technical thing set up for you to actually be delivering email in a way that's going to not put your account at risk, and your emails are going to be delivered correctly. So just sort of on the technical side, we look at that. We also look at the metrics, compare them to industry benchmarks. What are we seeing is happening in your ESP, and how does that compare to other brands like yours, and what the potential there is? We can often sometimes give an idea of a dollar amount of revenue that we could see that we could maybe recapture if we're looking at analyzing your average order value compared to the conversion rate that you're doing right now, and then offer some recommendations. Like if we were to take over in your ESP, here's some things that we would want to do right away. These are high priority items that we think could make a big difference, and here's some other things that you should also be considering. I think at the end of it, you just have a second eye on it. I know that it's our process internally too, to bring in other team members to look at the strategy that we've developed for our clients so that they can see what other missed opportunities there are. And so I think it's like a good thing to have other people looking at what sort of designs are you doing? How are those performing? Have you been doing A/B testing? What could you be differently? Are those tests set up correctly where the data you're getting is statistically significant and even useful for this? What's happening on your list? Is it growing, and why not? Are there suggestions that we have to increase list size and stuff like that over time? So yeah, we take a look at everything and we highlight what we find and some recommendations that we have. If you do end up working alongside us, I know that that audit is really helpful in helping us get the ball rolling right away, and we can see results within the first week or so of working together.
Great. Thank you, Megan. So I've got a couple of questions. I would encourage others who have questions to drop them in the Q&A. Now's your chance. We're moving into a Q&A time. But one of the questions is, is there one thing that you can do for your email strategy that both of you have seen sort of work time and time again, no matter what the industry? Do you have any quick wins for the audience that we might be able to share?
Ooh, this is a great question. I love a quick win. I guess mine would be really focusing the engagement, the segments you're building and targeting with your campaigns on engaged email users. It sounds basic, but those are the subscribers that have told you that they like that channel the best. Obviously, I work in SMS and email, so I'm constantly thinking about what channel and what subscriber we should be targeting to on what channel. So I'd say, yeah, really making sure that your email segmentation is considering those who click on emails, who open, who've converted from email. Megan, what about you?
I was going to say segmentation too. I was like,
we love segments.
Yeah, because I think when we talk about some of the other tactics that we had are more long game, right? Like we need some time to nurture your audience. So creating new content and seeing how that resonates and A/B testing is really impactful, but it takes time. I think you'll see immediate results if you change the way that you're segmenting and how you're strategically approaching that. You'll see the results both in deliverability. So it will have a long-term impact because we'll see like, okay, now my emails are getting to more people because I've been able to address my low click rate or whatever that might be. And then we'll see that conversion rate jump. I guess if I had to choose another one, I would go with that personalization piece. Is there anywhere that you can start adding in pieces of personalization using the data that you already have about your audience in your emails that you're sending?
Thank you. That's great. All right, next question. Is there anything that either of you see that's keeping brands out of people's inbox despite them feeling like they're doing everything right? So sort of the converse of the first question.
Yeah, on the deliverability side, seeing just a lot of spam folder placement related to how spam complaints, like brands getting spam reports or emails being marked as spam, and that kind of creates this like negative snowball effect where they get marked as spam, their domain reputation gets dinged, they go to the spam folder, no one opens. I think in this kind of like post Gmail Yahoo compliance world that we're operating in, seeing a lot of issues from brands who maybe haven't paid enough attention to their spam complaint rates or their spam rate in Google Postmaster tool, and that leading to some issues with getting their emails seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, Kimberly, was your question, what is the biggest issue that we're
Yeah,
seeing?
or what are issues that you're seeing that are keeping brands out of inboxes despite email marketers feeling like they're doing everything right? They've checked all the boxes on maybe some of the things that you've addressed in this webinar.
Yeah, I think it's that segmenting. You're hitting the audience that's not engaged right now, so they're not going to click through in your email. They're not interested in making a purchase. And then, as Lauren said, I think she covered it, that affects deliverability long term. I think there was a question in the chat.
Yeah,
Um,
I can read it too if you'd like.
okay.
From Campaign, what if you have very little info about a subscriber? They've subscribed with just an email or SMS, but never purchased, and you have no names or address. Do they get a generic email until they give you more info?
Yeah, I'd say lean into automation here to collect more information from the subscriber. So, I think the natural tendency is to like welcome flow them with a 20% off coupon, but what can you collect from that email from them that allows them to establish their preferences or what kind of content they want to receive from you? Maybe you ask them, maybe you give them option to pick, do they prefer X content versus Y or X content versus B content, like something like that. Thinking about it kind of as bi-directional, also really great for engagement if you're baking that into the email content. So it's natural to start out with very little data, but thinking about where in your automation flows can you start to collect some data from them that will in turn boost the value they get from your future emails. Great question.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as they're getting subscribed, that's an opportunity to collect data. So then that first email that they get from whatever platform they subscribed on has links that they can click, and they're going to tell you a little bit something about their interests. I think there's another question about if polls or surveys and emails could be used. I think absolutely. That's another way to collect information. It's more direct. So if you can get them to engage in that way, they're really telling you like, this is what I'm interested in because you've asked me. You can also collect information at the subscription time too. So I would take a look at what are you doing there? Is there an opportunity to say, hey, what kind of emails do you want to hear from? Or like what interests you about our brand so that you're asking them up front and then you can tailor those welcome series or whatever future messages directly to their interest level.
Great. We have another question. What have you seen be effective to get welcome flow signups besides discounts?
I can't underestimate the value of the discount. I think that is kind of a tried and true method. I think where time will tell if you can keep that subscriber based on the value that you're offering once they're in the inbox. And so I know that we could also run tests on, what the value is or the discount is at that sign up time. I would test it because I can't say based on the industry or who your audience is, like we're saying, is are they motivated by the discount primarily, or is that just something that we know to be true? But your particular audience, how are they responding to other types of messaging? So I would probably test a few different things.
Yeah, in addition to testing, I see this kind of question come up a lot. We work with a lot of like luxury beauty and personal care brands, so they're more not into discounting, and their
Mhm.
kind of pull on signups is about the community, like joining the community or getting educational value out of their products, since they tend to be higher priced products, maybe need some training to show how to use them. So leaning into maybe some of that like brand building and community building or educational content can also be helpful depending on the vertical, of course.
Yeah, exclusivity is something people like. People want to feel special. So if they're getting a discount, they feel special. If they're getting content that no one else gets, that also makes them feel special. So that's sort of like what Lauren was saying, is just a different version. It's not a discount, but it's another way to say, like, hey, I want to take this to the next level. I want to have a relationship with you. I keep using the dating metaphor throughout this webinar, but it's just by signaling to them that you have an interest in keeping the conversation going.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for joining today's webinar and everyone else who has attended. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. I want to just quickly call out the upcoming webinars that we have, or one upcoming webinar, What Elite Brands Know About Building High-Performing Affiliate Programs on June 11th at 2 p.m. You can register and explore more sessions at agital.com/insights/webinars. I will drop that in the chat. Oh, I already dropped that in the chat, or someone dropped that in the chat. Did I drop it in the chat? Well, it's there for you either way. Thank you again, Lauren and Megan. It was definitely a information-packed webinar. So I appreciate you, and we're getting some thank yous in the chat. So go to our attendees. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the great questions and great conversation.
Thank you.